Hello, this is Christine, and these are my mindful meanderings. I found myself getting a bit frustrated because it's been a couple of weeks since I produced any mindful meanderings, and it has felt like a lot of time has passed since I've done anything. I was looking at the work I had done on DaVinci to edit these recordings and found myself annoyed by the fact that I've only edited and rendered one, and it's largely because I'm finding myself bumping up against a few challenges. I'm learning a whole bunch of new processes. I'm being very vulnerable about things that are happening in our space. And I'm largely a very private person. So the idea of putting this information out to a broader audience is somewhat intimidating. The last 3 weeks, I've found myself reflecting on my circumstances, and it's been scary. A few weeks back, I mentioned that the integration of AI into our workspace has impacted my work, and consequently, since then, I'm dropped from 5 days a week in what was quite a busy role down to 2 or 3 days a week, and that's upset me to some degree. It's interesting because there's a big part of me that wants to embrace it, but at the same time, financially, things have been tight for a while. I did mention in another recording, which I've yet to edit, that we bought a piece of land back in 2019 and started to build a house in 2020, to then find that our builder went into liquidation in early 2021. And it seems to be this constant roller coaster. I'm glad to say that we have finally finished building the house and we have got a few tenants, but we're not in the clear just yet. And our financial position has been rather tight for a few years now. To give you some perspective, the house that we've built is, including all of its expenses, is about $5,500 a month. So our income that we've been bringing in is about $8,000 a month up until this point of my workflow changing. And so as you can probably do the math, that means we're left with about $2,500 to live off for the month, which is achievable. We've been able to do it, but we've had to make some significant sacrifices in order to achieve that. And what do I mean by significant sacrifices? Well, we have an apartment in Darwin and we finished renovating it. And because of the tight financial situation, we decided to rent out our home and we've been house sitting, which has been an amazing, wonderful experience. But it also has had its challenges. For example, when we don't have house sits that line up, we would need to find somewhere to stay, which either meant that we were leaning on friends or living in a tent. As you can probably hear from my voice, it's been stressful and somewhat shameful because the idea of being homeless sets a whole strange concept in my mind. I don't like to think of myself as being homeless, especially when I think that we're bringing in $8,000 a month. How could you possibly be homeless? The interesting thing is that I know we're not alone, not necessarily because of our financial circumstances, but because here in Australia, we have a major shortage of properties, which means that the supply and demand pushes the prices up. So the cost of living increases, and it makes it that much harder for people to find somewhere to live. So in some cases, we have people who can afford to pay the rent, but they're constantly pipped at the post because when they show up for a rental inspection, there are 50 other people. As an example, our place in Darwin, we recently had a change of tenancy. Funnily enough, our rental manager said that what we were asking was too high, even though that was what was recommended on realestate.com. There were 17 applicants to come to the open home. 10 couples showed up and 5 people applied for our property. Darwin is considered a regional area, and so the numbers are much smaller. So you can just imagine how the bigger cities like Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane are experiencing an increase in their rents. I was speaking with some friends of mine recently, and they've been considering upgrading to a different property and renting out the property that they live in. I asked them what they expected to receive for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, single garage townhouse in the Gold Coast, fully furnished, and I was told that they could expect between $800 and $1,000 per week. It blows my mind. How are everyday Australians supposed to afford a property to rent and support their family if their rent is 50% of their income? Additionally, every year Australia is falling behind, approximately 250,000 properties short every year. So you can just imagine how that is a compounding effect, because we've just lost over 100,000 builders in the last 4 years due to COVID and people going into retirement or moving overseas. Last month alone, the Australian government allowed 109,000 immigrants to move into Australia. Where are these people going to live? If everyday Australians are struggling to find rental property, I'm absolutely baffled. 2023, the Australian government opened the borders and over 900,000 immigrants moved into Australia. It's no wonder the prices of property are going up. But the income is not going up to match it. Our grocery expenses have increased by 30% in the last year, and that's without us having to pay rent. I find that there's a lot of worry that we shouldn't be experiencing. How has it become so hard for everyday Australians to get by? This is supposed to be the lucky country. This is supposed to be where opportunities are created. My husband and I are not the type of people to sit idly and wait for stuff to happen to us. We are very much action takers, and we're constantly pivoting and looking for new opportunities, which is why we have been developing our own content on various channels. And yes, it's still early days and we're still in the process of learning how to use programs like DaVinci and Audacity and how to upload things on social media, but it doesn't make it any easier. And so, as I said earlier, I'm finding I'm getting frustrated with myself because I know this is something I want to do. I know that it's something I have to do, not just for me, but for everybody out there who's struggling. They need to know they're not alone. I know I'm not alone. I've seen it. When we were house sitting in Bundaberg, there was about a dozen tents under the bridge. When we were walking along the river in Brisbane, there were probably 20 tents under the bridge. Many of them were permanent structures. They'd been there a long time. One even had a generator. A while back, we were camping in New South Wales in between house sits, and we met this really nice couple. They had been living at this camp spot for about 3.5 weeks. Just amazing. Now, I have no complaints about camping. I do enjoy camping. But I tell you what, when you're travelling through Victoria in the middle of July and it's 2 degrees and you're in a tent, it's freaking cold. I'm ready for the change. I'm ready for a new adventure. So I thought, I can't sit worrying all the time and thinking, oh, woe is me, when is this going to come right? So I sat this morning and I did a budget projection, and it was largely in relation to how soon we could expect our property to start paying us back. Last month we started getting tenants move in, and we now have 4 tenants. So this is a shared house, and it is able to house 9 people. Largely the reason why I started this project back in 2020, before all the shit went down, I might add. I'd already recognised that there was a housing shortage in Australia, and we'd already identified that the cost of living was starting to increase. So we'd squirreled away as much of our money as we could to put a deposit down and start planning this property. Little did I know then that I'd be one of the people needing this type of accommodation. It's odd. So we currently have 4 tenants, and we owe the rental managers a few $1,000s because they were kind enough to carry some of the costs for us so that we could get tenants in. So they installed the digital handles for each of the bedrooms, and they installed the cameras, and we had some repairs and maintenance that needed to be fixed before tenants could move in. So they were kind enough to cover the cost of that intermittently until we could get tenants, and then the plan is that the rent will be used to pay for those expenses, and then once those expenses have been paid back, we'll start to get a bit of money into our bank account, which, believe me, it's really looking forward to that. So we just need to hang on there for a few more months. Hopefully it's not going to be too many more months, because yeah, it's frustrating. Thank God that my family have been really helpful in getting this project finished and supporting us a little bit in some ways. And fortunately, we do have a little bit of money squirreled away, but it's not going to last forever if we don't keep adding to the pie. Anyway, I know this probably sounds like a bitter, sad, vulnerable mindful meanderings today, but I thought if the little bit that I've shared could help someone, then I might as well put it up and keep pressing on. So my next challenge is to face DaVinci and get some of these recordings edited. The learning process is certainly quite interesting for me, not only because I'm experiencing the challenges of the emotional bumping against the edges and being vulnerable and sharing myself, but also because I'm learning how to use a new tool, and it's a very different type of thing that I'm doing compared to doing accounts work. Creative activities and stuff like that is quite different. But I'm learning a lot and I'm growing. I just need to keep challenging myself and pressing forward. So hang in there, guys. As long as you keep living within your means and focusing on the bigger picture, we'll get there. It's only a matter of time. So I wish you all well. God bless. And I'll speak with you on the next episode. Until then, please would you like, share and subscribe. I don't know how many people this information will reach, but I genuinely hope that it helps. So until next time, have a wonderful day, and I'm gonna keep learning how to use DaVinci. Bye for now.